on the Sabbath day. But let's move on. Let's go back to Matthew 24. Let's take a look at this. But this is one of the main things that really throw people off. They think, this is how I know Matthew 24 got to be the future. Matthew 24 and verse 21. Matthew 24 and verse 21. See, right now, ain't nothing hindering us from leaving on the Sabbath if something was to jump off. The world don't observe the Sabbath. You can travel just as easy on a Saturday than you can on a Monday. If I want to get a plane ticket right now, they would let me. They don't care nothing about the Sabbath. But traveling was hard in Israel on the Sabbath because you couldn't buy stuff. Somebody saw you carrying a bunch of burdens and stuff. Those high priests would be getting on you. Hey, what you doing carrying that load? You can't do that. They'll be all in your face, slowing you down and everything. That's why Jesus said you better hope your flight don't be on the Sabbath. Because Israel back then, they kept the Sabbath. They thought you carrying a bunch of stuff and a big old burden pushing the wagon and stuff, calling yourself going for a while, you're going to have soldiers stopping you. Israelite soldiers. Because how you think they enforce the law? The high priest was just the judicial part of it. But if you tried to rebel, they had soldiers, they had police. They called them soldiers. They would stop you. If you call yourself, I'm going to keep on going. One of the high priests say, hey, this guy that filed the Sabbath, get him. Forget not getting out of Jerusalem, you probably get killed. That's why Jesus said, pray that your flight don't be on the Sabbath. You got to keep it in context. But now check this out. 24 and 21. And we wind it down. Go ahead.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not seen, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be.
And see, this is why people think that this is in the future. They say, this is going to be the worst thing that ever happened. This is Bible terminology. You can read in other places where it said, it's going to be as bad as it ever been before. And then something comes right after that and they say the same thing. I thought back then it wasn't going to ever be able to get any worse than that. They just say, wait, that's called a hyperbole. It's called, which means adding emphasis on how bad or how extreme something is. You don't really mean that, but the point is, he said, for then shall be great tribulation. First of all, great tribulation on who? Who was he talking to? The Jews. He was talking to his disciples. It's going to be great tribulation on them, right? But let's take a look at this fulfillment. Let's go back to the book of Josephus. And we're going to go to the preface of the book of Wars, which is in the beginning, before you actually get to the chapters, paragraphs, the preface. And it's preface, book 4. And paragraph 12. Now look what Josephus says and how he describes what the Jews went through concerning the war with the Romans that they had. Look how he describes it. It's on page 544 if you have a problem finding it. 544. Mm-hmm. And paragraph 12. Where it says accordingly.
I think my page is different.
Let me see. It was not right there.
12. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Accordingly, it appears to me that the misfortunes of all men...
Now he said, it appears to me that the misfortunes of all men, go ahead.
From the beginning of the world.
From the beginning of the world. Hold your spot right there. Go back to Matthew 24. Now read verse 21 again. Go ahead. Matthew 24 and 21. Read it again.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time.
Now, it says the same thing, right? Now, go back to Josephus and finish reading that. Josephus worded it the same way, because he's describing that. Go ahead.
Read over.
Accordingly,
it appears to me that the misfortunes of all men from the beginning of the world, if they be compared to these of the Jews...
If they be compared to these of the Jews, go ahead.
Are not so considerable as they were.
Are not so considerable as they were. In other words, nothing in the world can be compared to what happened to the Jews during these wars from like 66 AD to 30 AD. Nothing can be compared. They say 2 million Jews perished in this war. 2 million. Right? And you can read in Josephus some of the things they went through. They just didn't kill these people. If they were torturing them, they were cutting them open and stealing money from their bellies. Because these people were so afflicted that they thought they may get away later, so they would swallow their money, and later on they
the authors of them were not foreigners either.
He said, while the authors of them were not foreigners either. Some of the stuff that happened to the Jews happened among themselves. He said, many shall be afflicted and betray one another. The Jews will kill each other too. Read Josephus. Go ahead.
This makes it impossible for me to contain my lamentation.
He said, it makes it impossible for me to contain my lamentations, my mourning. Because Josephus was a Jew. He said, I'm mourning for this. But he is wording it the same way Jesus worded it. Jesus was talking about the tribulation that was going to come upon the Jews. Go ahead.
But if anyone be inflexible in his censures of me, let him attribute the facts themselves to the historical part.
To the what part?
Historical.
It's already been fulfilled. To the historical part. He said the same thing Jesus said. This has already been fulfilled. He wasn't talking about us. He was talking about them. He said there shall be great tribulation. This is the beginning of it. It's so bad, it's going to be worse than anything that happened since the beginning of the world, nor it never shall be again. This happened to the Jews. It's not talking about us. Remember, the disciples asked them, when shall these things be? The destruction of the temple, and what shall be the sign that the temple is going to be destroyed? And he's telling you all this is going to lead up to the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem. Great tribulation among who? The Jews back there, and you see the historical fulfillment of it in Josephus. Let's go on. Let's go back to Matthew 24 and pick it up in verse 23. Like we said, we can show you everything has been fulfilled. But this is the main one right here. I know I said this was the main one. Now actually this one right here is the one. This is the one where everybody's sitting back saying, oh, I already know. There's no way they're going to say this already happened. Go ahead and read. 23.
Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not.
First of all, ask yourself, who is he talking to? His disciples. If anybody says to you, there is Christ, there is the Messiah, or there, don't believe it. Go ahead.
For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
We already read that in Josephus. It said many false prophets were deceiving the people. And they were doing signs and wonders. We already read that. And he's telling his disciples, don't be fooled by these people. But all of this is in relation to what? The destruction of the temple and Jerusalem, and you being able to escape it. Keep it in context. People that are looking for false prophets in general. No, in relation to the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem, because that's what the original question was. You got to keep it in context. You can't go universalizing something that's aimed at a specific question asked by a specific group of people. But go ahead and read.
Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth.
If they shall say unto you, he didn't say, tell the people to tell future generations. No, he said, they say unto you, who? The disciples. And he's in the secret chamber. Don't go over there. Go ahead.
Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not.
He said, believe it not. They say in the depth of the secret chamber, don't go, don't believe it. But read the next part.
For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
And see, this is where they go. They say, see, Jesus don't come as a bolt of lightning. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Now we're going to deal with this because we went all the way in the beginning to Matthew 24 when they asked us, when shall these things be and what shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the world? We found out meaning age, a specific age. But now they said, as lightning coming from the east and shining to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And you can see lightning, but is this talking about a visual or is this talking about the quick and powerful effect of lightning? We don't see that. We ain't going to leave anything to interpretation. We're going to show you what it meant. But go ahead.
28. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together.
Now, keep that in mind. He said, wherever the carcass is, wherever the dead bodies are, so shall the eagles